Hello everyone, welcome to this Gran Turismo 6 review. We're going to look at a couple of things, but first up, the physics. Now the physics are pretty good in my mind. Now you'll see me here, come into this corner slightly too fast, wheel on the gravel, rear goes completely out, and then I'm trying to catch a slide basically. And that to me is pretty good, because now I'm struggling to catch slides. In Gran Turismo 5 it was a little easier. As you can see there, I put full throttle, once again the rear comes out and goes everywhere. The fact that it does that means I can't come out of a corner now and absolutely flat it. I'm having to judge my throttle, which is perfect in my eyes for this sort of game, because I can't then be so aggressive. I've got to think, right, okay, I need to put a little less throttle on, actually make sure I get around the corner and then go. So, you know, that's really good. And the braking as well is exactly the same. One thing that isn't that realistic though is this. The gravel trap doesn't slow you down at all. But the sort of acceleration and braking seems to be a lot better than Gran Turismo 5 and a really good improvement. Wet racing is pretty good as well, because there's actually completely different lines that you can take with different grip levels, and you can actually feel that as you're driving. So as you can see there, I'm sort of staying off the dry line as best as possible, which is there, and every time I go onto that, I understeer off. Now the best example of this is coming up, where you'll see me dive on the inside a bit earlier than you should do for this corner. As you see there, I've now got lots of grip, not a lot of grip, suddenly I have a bit of grip again, and as I come onto the inside, I'll have a lot of grip. There we go, I start understeering. That is perfectly simulated, because that's exactly what happens in real life. With regards to rallying and the physics with rallying though, because these are the sort of the three main aspects of this game, it's sort of unique really with the rallying physics, because if you want a rally simulator, I'd go and buy a rally simulator, not a racing simulator. But it does bring a unique element to sort of the driving, and it might be able to help you with your racing. The graphics in GT6 are pretty much at its limit really. Actually, I think they're actually a bit above the PlayStation 3's limit. As you saw there, there's a tiny bit of a frame rate drop, and in the game you'll experience that the more cars you have, especially at the start of a race. The frame drop is enormous, and you can even have frame lag where literally frames are missed and then suddenly the cars are jumping everywhere. And that's mainly because of the PlayStation 3's RAM. It's got 256 meg versus a PlayStation 4's 8 gig, and that just basically shows you what's going to be coming in the PlayStation 4 range for next gen racing games. So with that in mind, the wet weather graphics, as you'll see here, aren't amazing. Like 170 miles an hour behind that car, I should not be able to see a thing. But obviously they've had to reduce the amount of spray just so that you can drive basically, because otherwise you won't be able to drive because of the frame rate. And yeah, that's been sort of hampered there. One thing that hasn't been hampered though is sort of the light transition, and lighting's a big part of upcoming games. So as you see here, I'm in a dark tunnel. The light is really strong outside, I can't really see. As I go through the tunnel, the light changes, the blur goes away, and it sort of gives you that perception of dark to light, which is really, really good. The night driving graphics though, with the lighting, are very good. The lights are basically in the wrong place. So as you can see there, the lights are hitting the road as they should do. But if you're on a flat surface, it only bounces off objects, and at Willow Springs, objects don't exist. It's in the middle of the desert, and you're basically driving blind. So they really need to improve on where the lights hit and being able to see what's coming up ahead. So sound, if you just listen to this briefly. So I just thought you should listen to that, because that engine roar of the Red Bull Juniors, and basically all the Red Bull cars seems to be like this, is really, really good, and definitely improvement from the vacuum sound, and hopefully a preview of what's coming up, because this vacuum sound isn't really the best. It doesn't bother me too much, it bothers other people, but they've said they're improving on it, and it looks like they are with the Red Bull stuff. It's something to look forward to in a future patch. So the AI, definitely something to be desired. So as I cross the line, I'm 12.9 seconds behind. Next lap, I gain half a second, so I'm gaining half a second per lap. I'm not going to make it, I'm not going to win the race at that speed. There's only 6 minutes to go. 11.7, around half a second again. All of that times are staying the same. Bam, I suddenly gain a second. Next lap, I gain 7 seconds. 7 seconds, look at the lap times. I've only increased it by 400ths. How have I gained 7 seconds? Makes no sense. The reason being is in every race there's a epic slowdown lap near the end, or basically a percentage of the race which is nearly over. They slow down and then basically let you win. And I'm in a Pagani Huayra here versus GT1 cars. Doesn't make sense at all. So they really need to get rid of that and bring in progressive AI, like make it harder for people to actually win races, because that's where the fun is. So bearing that in mind, we've got multiplayer. Obviously that is a big part of the game. I'm racing here at Sucker Free Sunday with Ronan, and the multiplayer is pretty good. I can't have any faults with it really when I've raced here online. Obviously I'm just getting used to it, so a little bit of bashing, but generally it's pretty good, and it gives us potential for esports. Now with sort of esports, if Gran Turismo sort of utilises championships, communities, which they're trying to do, there's not fully integrated yet, but when they've done that, you could see big tournaments start coming to Gran Turismo. So Red Bull already have good links with Gran Turismo, and they do a lot of esports competitions, so you could imagine soon maybe competing maybe for £1,000 or whatever for the winner, and you could follow your favourite drivers in basically multiplayer races. So with the game in general though, it is focused more online, and you see that with the licenses, which has the best upgrade of them all, leaderboards. So you'll see me here, just have a quick gander at the leaderboards before I set off on this little last license test, and you can see Pierre's top, so instantly I'm thinking, right, how am I going to beat Pierre, because that's a pretty fast time, 3.6 seconds ahead of anyone else. Let's give it a bash. And basically, even if you don't beat him, you can then come back later on and then try and beat him, or beat whoever is on your friends list. I'm hoping a global leaderboard will come in, because that'll push it even further, but you can see where you need to improve. Now Pierre's time weirdly doesn't appear here, I'm not sure why, but the fact that you can do this on licenses is amazing. I think it's one of the best upgrades they've done from Gran Turismo 5 to Gran Turismo 6. You couldn't ask for anything else really. That was one thing they needed to do, was make the licenses more interesting for the experienced player, but allow them good enough to, you know, for a new player to still get gold, which they've done. You can do both. You can top leaderboards, you can improve on leaderboards, beat your friends, but also get gold and carry on with the game. So with that upgrade in mind, that is absolutely stunning and definitely a big improvement. What isn't a big improvement is the career mode, or well, quotation marks career mode, because it's exactly the same as what it was. You select a category, you go in, and then you pick a race you want to do. It's essentially the same as Gran Turismo 5, it's just labelled differently, and there's no progression there really. You end up at endurance races as you've always done. You start off in the Sunday Cup, which you've always done, whereas I'd want to see sort of what the Red Bull Championship did, which is what's on the screen now, where you start off with karting, you then go in the juniors, then progress into the sort of standard Red Bull cars, and that shows progression, it gives you a sense of progression. Now I stay in the cockpit view here just because it's a bit more fun, and I know the AI isn't that challenging, so I can have a bit of fun pretending I'm actually in the race. And with this, I actually had the most fun in this championship really. Now I realise I'm driving pretty slowly and pretty poorly, but if you're having fun, that's what it's all about. And that's the thing with Gran Turismo, is a progression, sort of type of progression that you have. If you have that, it's more fun. Doing a race series and then going into another race series which is on the same level, and then doing another one on the same level, and having no sort of progression, it's just, it gets boring. Like, that's what I mean. I started off doing all the races and was like, it's exactly the same. So they really need to focus on the career mode. I mean, if they brought in a career mode where you've got a selection of cars, or maybe the AI get more difficult. Tokka Race Driver had a really good sort of career sort of mode where you started off in the lower leagues, but you could never win consistently in the races. If you kept winning each race, AI difficulty shot up. They had sort of a percentage scheme, and it got to a point where you could not win a race. It was that difficult, and then when you'd lost the race, difficulty came down slightly. So you ended up with a game where the AI were pretty much on your level, and then you could just race and race and race, and it was actually really fun. And that's where I think Gran Turismo needs to go with their game really. Overall though, it's a pretty good game for the price. You're paying what, 60 quid for the anniversary edition, and you're going to get 2 years out of it. You pay a lot more than that for some racing games, especially with the amount of DLC. DLC costs a little sometimes with Gran Turismo, but it's to be expected because it costs to make stuff. Microtransactions aren't needed. They are there for people who don't have enough time, But generally this game is actually pretty good and well worth the buy if I'm honest. Just need to improve on the AI.